celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. The day of our anniversary will be November 16. So this means that we were created in 1970. At a time when Desjardins was host to dozens of delegations from various countries, but in great part coming from developing or emerging countries. And those delegations came to learn more about the financial cooperative model on one side, but also more particularly about the Desjardins practices and methodologies. And seeing this need for learning and for exchanging, especially in developing and emerging countries, Desjardins decided to set up a new component that would dedicate itself to adapting and to sharing with these countries the experience and the know-how of Desjardins Group. So this means that right from the beginning, DID's purpose was to encourage the development of inclusive finance, which, as you know, is at the heart of the financial cooperative model. You can move to the next slide, Valeria. So a few words about our history. So we'll go back in time a little bit further, because I think it's interesting and it's important to outline that in Quebec, at first, the founder of Desjardins Group, Mr. Alphonse Desjardins, drew a lot of inspiration and advice from European cooperators, just before setting up the first Desjardins Caisse in 1900. We also have to remember that at this time, financial inclusion was not at all achieved among the Quebec population. A big majority of the population still could not access the services, the financial services offered by local banks. And in fact, this situation was quite similar to that we keep seeing nowadays in developing and even emerging countries. In Quebec, the cooperative financial model did not take long to prove that it was a very powerful tool, as you know, for increasing financial inclusion. And today, it's widely recognized that the Desjardins cooperatives, or CAIS, had a major contribution to the socioeconomic development of Quebec. And so this is why DID was set up, so that Desjardins could share its cooperative recipe, if I can say, and its success with countries where financial inclusion remained a concern. You can move on to the next one, Valeria. And in fact, even today, much remains to be done, as 1.7 billion adults still do not have a bank account and cannot even access mobile banking services. And a majority of these people are women. It's hard for us to imagine this situation, though you may be aware of this situation. But just imagine that you have nowhere safe to place your money, you have no possibility of borrowing money at a decent rate, you're not able to transfer funds other than by moving around with cash on you, you have no insurance to protect your assets. So this is a very difficult situation for millions of families today, and this is what we are trying to work on. You can move to the next slide, Valeria. So for the past 50 years, DID has been working to develop the inclusive finance sector in developing and emerging countries. Of course, we mostly work directly with financial institutions. So we work with them to strengthen their capacities, to improve their service offer. But we also work directly with the people that they serve, with their members and their clients. So we provide them with financial education, coaching, so that they're able to make a proper use of financial services. So we try to strengthen both the offering side and also the demand side, so that they can that they have a proper fit. And we also work with governments and other public actors that make up the great financial ecosystem. And this is how we can have a significant and most of all a sustainable impact. And by doing so, we aim at strengthening the economic autonomy of populations through financial inclusion. You can move on to the next one, Valeria. DID's action is based on two main development levers. Both are aimed at promoting better access to financial services. The first one is technical assistance, or we can say consulting expertise. As I just mentioned, this technical assistance can be aimed either at financial institutions, at their members and clients, at central banks, or at other actors, and it can cover various areas or topics. For example, some of our projects are aimed at improving governance or legal frameworks, or at supporting digital transformation. Some are meant to promote and support entrepreneurship, Others can be related to the transformation of agri-food systems. And in all cases, we place great importance on achieving gender equality, the inclusion of and empowerment of young people, and of course, the protection of environment. Over time, DID has carried out over 600 technical assistance projects in more than 65 countries. DID also has another tool in its toolbox, and it's impact investment. With this additional lever, we offer financial institutions a source of capital that they can use either for financing or for investment. Our goal with that is to help these institutions pursue their growth, but also strengthen their governance, and always with the final purpose of providing disadvantaged populations with a better access to financial services. You can move on to the next one, Valeria. Is it okay that I'm not speaking too fast, or everyone hears me correctly? Okay. DID's commitment to impact investment is maybe less well known to many of you, but we have been active in this field for nearly 25 years now. And a few days ago, we made a new and important step as we launched a new impact fund called Equitas, which is intended to support the achievement of various sustainable development goals through financial inclusion. Maybe you know that it's now quite clear, that the public money alone cannot be enough to reach these goals, and the private sector must therefore pitch in if we want to make it. So this is what we call blended finance, and we see Equitas as a good example of blended finance, which is the combination of private and public funds that are required to achieve the SDGs. So the Equitas Fund will be providing the inclusive finance sector with patient capital, and it will mainly target the smaller financial institutions, the ones that are too often overlooked by large investment funds. It will have a wide geographic scope and will include Africa, Latin America, and Asia all at once. With Equitas, we hope to channel capital to those who need it the most, and we certainly hope that it will help support sustainable economic recovery in the difficult context of the COVID crisis. The fund has an initial envelope of 50 million Canadian dollars coming from both DID and Desjardins. And in the coming years, we hope to attract additional investors, may they be private or public, who also seek impact in developing countries. You can move on to the next one, Valeria. I see that I'm going a bit fast, not too fast. I hope I'm not losing anyone on the way. But this gives me time to present you with a few more concrete examples of some projects carried out by DID over the years. For example, in several West African countries, but also in Haiti, in Vietnam, in various countries of Eastern Europe, we have helped over the years create and develop strong and inclusive financial cooperative networks. Many of these networks have grown to become the biggest inclusive finance institutions on their market. This was the case, for example, in Burkina Faso. It was the case in Senegal, in Vietnam, in Haiti also. In Lithuania, for example, we created a cooperative network that today is the only locally owned financial institution in the country. And all of these networks, of course, provide access to financial services to a majority of the populations they serve. So they make a great difference in their respective communities. In other countries, for example, in Benin, in Haiti, Zambia, Tanzania, Uganda, Tunisia, and Panama, we have established what we call financial centers for entrepreneurs. Those are specialized institutions that target micro and small businesses financing. So those are businesses that have a size that is sometimes too big to be satisfied by very small microfinance institutions, but not big enough to be able to do business with banks. So there was a missing middle, a gap, an important gap in the access that these businesses had to financial services, and this is the problem that we wished to solve with the financial centers we set up for entrepreneurs. Those centers, some of them were part of existing cooperative networks, but others were set up as private organizations. Yet all of these institutions focused on financial inclusion of small entrepreneurs. In many countries also, but more recently in Colombia, Mali, and Haiti, we worked at improving access for smallholders to both financial and non-financial services, even including services of insurance, crop insurance, for example, loan insurance. In some countries like Sri Lanka and Haiti, we supported reconstruction efforts following the natural disasters that shook these countries, starting with rebuilding the financial cooperatives themselves so that afterwards they could, in their turn, support the local populations in rebuilding their assets. In West Africa, Mexico, the Philippines, Haiti, Morocco, and Russia, we work with central banks and other public actors to help develop rigorous and inclusive regulatory frameworks. So as you can see, the scope is quite wide of the types of intervention that DID carries out. But in all cases, the target is really to improve access to financial services for the whole population. And through all these projects, what we try to do is really to increase the economic autonomy of populations by facilitating access to a diversity of financial and sometimes even non-financial services around the world. You can move on to next slide, Valeria. So as you can imagine, over the years, we have built strong and long-lasting relationships with dozens of partners that are disseminated across 4 continents. In 2006, many of these partners came together to create a network that they called Proxfin. Among the 30 members that Proxfin brings together today is Coop Central, who I see that they are not with us today, but they're also a member of CIBP. And the Proxfin network allows its members to share experience and practices, both among themselves, but also with DID and Desjardins experts. So this allows us to keep our relationship alive. And this sharing of experience takes place mostly during technical seminars that we hold every year in different countries on topics that are always very operational, but always related to inclusive finance. For example, we recently talked about digital finance. We also addressed the topic of business development services in Tunisia last year. And this year, just 2 weeks ago, we discussed a very important topic of financial education. And we hope that through these discussions and exchanges that we allow Proxfin members to have among themselves, they can increase their contribution to financial inclusion and local development in their own communities. So that concludes the short presentation that I wanted to share with you today. I hope that it allowed you to discover or to better understand Desjardins' commitment in international development through DID. And I would be most happy now to hear your comments or answer any questions you may have about our organization and what we do.
Hello, France.
Oui.
Christelle speaking from Belgium.
Hi.
Thank you very much for this very interesting presentation. I was just curious to know how many people are working for DID.
We're about 100 of us. Actually, it's hard to give you just one number because the people working, most people are based in our headquarters in Lévis, in Canada. There are about 75 of us. On top of that, we have about 20 employees, regular employees that work abroad in the various countries where we are active. And each of our projects, many of them also hire local teams. So maybe in total, we're probably over 200 employees if we include all of these people. But we most often speak about 100 regular employees making up the team.
Okay. And are you only working for projects abroad, or are you trying to do like microfinance for Quebec too?
Yes, actually, we started in 2014. We had our first mandate. It was funny because when we obtained this mandate, we talked about our first mandate in a foreign country, which was Canada, or a new country, which was Canada, because it came from Desjardins. And Desjardins asked us to support the Desjardins Caisse in the deployment and the coordination of what we called solidarity-based products. There are 3 programs that are aimed at promoting the financial inclusion of new entrepreneurs and people experience financial difficulties. So they're products that are very similar, aimed at financial inclusion, so very similar to what we do in foreign countries. And the issue, the problem Desjardins had was in managing, coordinating, and monitoring the results of these programs. And this is what we do also in foreign countries. So we help Desjardins better coordinate and better monitor the results, the impact of these products that are very interesting. That they're the information. Maybe I can share the links with you to provide you more details about those. They're programs that offer adapted financing to people, but this financing is coupled with coaching and mentoring to help them, or budget counseling in the case of people who experience financial difficulties. And so they're really aimed at strengthening the capacities of people, may they be entrepreneurs or just individuals going through a rough time financially. So just to go back to your question, yes, we also work in promoting financial inclusion in Canada through our support to Desjardins Caisse.
Okay, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Was it new? I don't know if you knew about the existence of DID, if you knew that Desjardins was involved in international development through this component. Maybe you were already aware of what we did, or were there any surprising elements in what I just shared with you?
It's indeed a very good question, as we have colleagues in Morocco, in Argentina, and in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to hear if they have heard of the idea, or if they have companies or organizations that have requested some help on that expertise, and that you could have guided them. It's a very good question.
Hi, can I ask you something, Franz? Hi, thank you so much for your presentation. Sorry, I think that anyone is speaking too.
I think it's okay.
Okay, I go. Thank you so much for your presentation. It was so clear. And I didn't know what Desjardins was doing abroad in other countries besides Quebec or, sorry, Canada. The thing that I want to ask you is if you have any kind of young program or a program for young people all around the world, and if you have some special program for that, because last year I was researching about Desjardins and the way that you speak to the young people, and I think it's a good way that you talk with them and the way that you interact with them. So in the line that you talk about of all this kind of experience, do you have any special program from young and to connect these two programs, or the young with this kind of organization that you have?
Actually, all of our projects, as I mentioned, try to focus on young people and make sure that young people are being included. We don't have one single program or one single approach that we use in all of our projects. But for example, in Cameroon in past years, we worked directly with young rural entrepreneurs, and we provided coaching. We made sure that they had access to adapted financing to support their activities. So this is the kind of thing that we can do. We carry out various programs of financial education also that are adapted to the needs of young people. But regarding this area, as in all of our areas of interventions, we also base our action on what Desjardins does in Canada with its own members. And as you may know, Desjardins has plenty of programs aimed at supporting young people. And so in all cases, we find a lot of inspiration from that, and we try to adapt this to the people, the young people that we work with in other countries.
Good. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Hello, France. This is Amin speaking from Morocco.
Bonjour.
First of all, thank you for your presentation. Bonjour. I just had a quick question regarding what kind of projects did you guys conduct in for people living in the rural areas? Basically, people that are living with farming, for example.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of development project did you guys conduct, and how did you guys do it? Thank you.
Yes, actually, many kinds of projects, and our service offer has evolved quite a lot from 1970 until today. So at a certain time, we used to set up cooperatives or financial institutions in areas where there were absolutely no offering of financial services. And with time, we started to support more and more already existing financial institutions. And as time went by, we started working not only with financial institutions, but also with the other actors of the financial ecosystem so that we could have a greater impact and a more sustainable impact, as I mentioned earlier. And so today, for example, we just finished a project in Colombia, a great project that brought us to work with 40 financial institutions trying to improve and strengthen their capacities. We introduced new processes to better communicate with our clients. We introduced new credit methodologies, new products. We also work directly with groups of smallholders to provide financial education, but even technical coaching in agriculture, because we wanted to make them better agricultors and better borrowers. And on top of that, we work with the ministries so that they would better include the focus of the smallholders in public policy. So really, we had a very wide scope in this project. In other projects, for example, in Burkina Faso, we targeted innovation, and we tried to see what does a producer need if he wants to perform well. So we realized that access to financial services was at the heart of its needs, but he also needed to have access to the proper inputs, for example, seeds, fertilizers, etc. And it was hard sometimes to access the right quality of products in the right amount when he needed it at the adequate time. And so we worked with various suppliers to make sure that the producer could access, if he wanted to do well, if we wanted him to pay back his loan, his financial loan, he had to be able to produce in correctly. And so we wanted to make sure that he could access all of the inputs that he needed at the right time, in the right amount, and at a good quality also, including environment-friendly products. And this way, he was able to increase his productivity and eventually pay back his loan in an adequate manner. So this illustrates the kind of focus that we have. Projects can vary a lot from one another, but in all cases, what we see, we always work with financial institutions and with financial. We want products. We want to make financial services more accessible, but what we see is that financial inclusion can lead to various other objectives, and so this is why we widened our perspective considerably in the past few years, because we want to have more impact. I don't know if this answers your question properly.
Yeah, it does answer my question. Thank you very much for it.
Pleasure.
This means that the first question was how many employees you have within the idea, more or less 100 people.
Yes.
It means that as you have been expanding the expertise on different levels according to the sector you are working in, because it could be machinery then, it can be, I don't know, I imagine that in Africa, developing craft work of whatever kind. It means that you,
yes.
How are you working around the continents to find those experts who can also locally understand the culture? It's a huge
yes, a
generous
challenge,
yes. And it's very generous what you are doing to find all those experts who are willing to dedicate some time. And so I also understand how you are generating those funds in order to continue to do so. So what is the secret also to inspire all those people that are not only employees but also within your connection, your network to give so much?
Yes, well, actually, your question is twofold. It brings up financing and it brings up the expertise, how we find the expertise to carry out our projects. Regarding the expertise, actually, we work in partnership with various organizations. The DID experts themselves are mostly specialists in finance. Or sometimes in agricultural finance or commercial finance, entrepreneur finance, but mostly in finance. And when we work in agriculture, for example, when we try to find suppliers of inputs, etc., we do that in partnership, either with research centers or other kinds of partners. So we know that we cannot provide all of the expertise that is involved in our projects. And regarding financing, actually, DID is an NGO. It was set up as a not-for-profit organization, though it's part of Desjardins. Desjardins co-finances. It provides us with an annual grant, so it shares part of its profits to support DID's activities, mostly as regards research and development expenses. The contribution of Desjardins mainly is that of sharing its experience. So Desjardins doesn't have any secret, and all of their programs, methodologies, it's at our disposal so that we can adapt it and share it with our partners. They also welcome every year, except in the COVID context, but usually every year they receive various delegations. So the CAIS, the Federation, all of the components of Desjardins welcome many people every year to share their experience, their know-how, etc. So this is the contribution of Desjardins. This means that the most part of our financing comes from external fund providers. For example, Global Affairs Canada, which is the Canadian Ministry of International Cooperation, the World Bank, other developing banks. So those are the ones that finance our projects. And some of our projects are carried out because we made proposals to these fund providers. In other cases, we have to submit proposals. We have to answer calls for proposals coming from fund providers. So this is how we work mainly.
Any other questions?
I have one more question. Sorry, Franz, but it's so interesting that you told us. I don't know if it's possible, but in all these countries that you are working on financial inclusion, is one of their objectives, of your objectives, to promote the creation new cooperatives in these countries, or for the people to choose the cooperative way to organize the work or the companies in these countries? Do you have any number or KPI to know if there's more cooperative way or more new cooperatives in these countries?
I'm not sure I understand your question properly, but maybe I can say that cooperatives are all. We don't have always have the latitude to choose this model when we want to implement or support organizations. But in all cases, cooperative principles, cooperative values are at the heart of what we share and what we do. But just to make sure that your question was aimed at, you wanted to know if we had numbers.
If you know that in this country that you are working on, there's
Yes.
Do you have new cooperatives, new companies as a cooperative? If people choose a cooperative way to entrepreneur.
But for example, when I talked about setting up financial center for entrepreneurs, when we study the environment and when we try to establish where financial inclusion sits and what are the needs, we start working. We always seek to first work with cooperative networks. In some cases, for example, in Haiti and in Benin, those centers for entrepreneurs were set up as part of existing cooperative networks so that they would be support, they would strengthen existing cooperatives. In other areas, when we saw that there were no cooperative networks that could welcome such a center, we implemented private ones. But as I said, even when we work with non-cooperatives, because in the first years of its existence, DID was working mostly with cooperatives, or was setting up mostly cooperative networks. This is really what we did. And over time, we've started working or implementing other kinds of institutions, but always the common ground is always that we want to establish and include and integrate the cooperative principles and values, even if the legal entity is not a cooperative one. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
Personally, I find it also very, very interesting. It's very inspiring, really, about all the actions that you are having all around the world. And as you said just now, even if the organization you are helping out is not a cooperative, your mindset is cooperative. And
yes,
and I think the values are so strong that they at a certain moment you cannot do then just apply them and maybe learn from them. So this is very rich, France. I suggest that if you don't have any further questions for now, that you will be receiving France's presentation still today and her contact details. So if you all agree, don't hesitate to contact France should be needed, or to put your colleagues who are developing such programs in your countries to learn from DID and from Desjardins. France, from my side, and if I may, on behalf of everyone, thank you very much. This was great. I'm willing to suggest you to meet again next year to hear more about, maybe we can organize another Spark to hear more about a specific project, how you implement the project, the technology about it, the expertise. You gave us today overall overview of what you do. And maybe, who knows, there is a project that you can share with all of us one day. So I hope we stay in contact.
I do too.
Thank you very much. Dear everyone, I wish you a good day, a good afternoon, and we stay in touch, and happy to see some of you to join us every month. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.